I'm in a new junior leadership role, and I've been asked to make sure I have a view on anything that comes up and to not be afraid of being wrong when I'm putting that view forward. But because the area of work is new to me, I often don't have viewpoints off the top of my head in discussions with really experienced, more senior people in which the context shifts quickly. How can I do better? This was a great question posed by Amita, and I want to talk about why this is great advice and how to deal with it a bit. Hi, I'm Ben at leadershipjetway.com. I'm all about helping new leaders make a flying start on their leadership journey. And all leadership revolves around knowing what you think about issues and decisions that have to be taken as they arise. Whether you're leading from above, so you're working with your team and you're the person making the decisions, or if you're leading from within, so you're working with your colleagues and your peers in the organization, or if you're leading from below and you're trying to help steer your boss in the right direction, you've been asked to have a view on something, you can contribute leadership by knowing what you think and saying it out loud. Especially when it's a finely balanced decision. I mean, it's obvious what the right thing to do is. If it's obvious what the right thing to do is, then it doesn't take much to say it, right? If the building's burning down, the right thing to do is evacuate and put out the fire, right? Everybody knows. It's much harder to express a view when the decision is multifaceted, when there's lots of stuff going on, there's pros and cons on both sides. But if you want to lead from above or from below or within, you have to point the way you think you should go. It's what leaders do. This is the way. This way. We're going to go this way. So it's great advice to be training yourself to be thinking, if this was my decision, this is what I would do and why. It's really important. But Amita's question was basically, how do I do that? And especially when the topic is new, everybody else is so much more experienced than me. How do I actually come to the viewpoints quickly? And, well, when we dug into it, it turns out there's a weekly meeting of the senior group at which the project that Amita's leading is discussed regularly. And it's in these meetings that the conversations move quickly and range across things, and you're dealing with people that are more senior than you or more experienced than you. So my suggestion on how to handle that was in two main parts. First, build your knowledge week around that weekly meeting. So create a schedule of your own for thinking about the things that might come up in that meeting. Think about what issues those other experienced people might bring forward. Be really clear for yourself about what the major milestones for your work are this week, and prep by talking about those issues that might come up and what the milestones are, both for the week just gone and the week to come. Talk about all of that stuff with your team. Get a sense of where your team is on the issues. What are they thinking? What's important to them right now? Get yourself really clear on what you were trying to achieve this week, how well it's gone, what your focus is for the next week, and how all of that fits into the big picture of the project and your organization more widely. And by the way, I'm talking about this as if it's a project that's being run. It doesn't have to be a project. It could just be the area that you're leading in the institution. So first, get yourself clear on all of that stuff. And second, when it comes to the discussion of your project or your area that you're leading on in that kind of big stakeholder weekly meeting, make sure you're driving the conversation as much as you can. Go through, this is what I've been working on, this is what the team's been working on, this is how it's going, this is what the next priority is. Drive that discussion from your viewpoints, from the places where you know what you think. And if you do this consistently, 3 or 4 things might happen. First, if you're questioned on any aspect of the stuff that you've pre-thought about, you've got a ready viewpoint. You know what the answer is, you understand what you think, you're ready to say it. Second, if you're questioned on stuff that's outside of what you've been thinking about, you've got 2 possible ways to answer. The first is, that's interesting and important, yes, but it's not what we should be focusing on right now. We should be focusing on this thing that I have thought about, right? The second possible answer is, that's interesting and important, and that hasn't come up in our team meetings or on where we are with the project at the moment. We haven't been talking about that. I'm going to need to think about that and get back to you. So your view is, it's an important topic, but I need to go and talk to my team about it. Right? Third thing that might happen, the more that the other people around see that you're on top of prioritizing in your project, tracking progress within your project, knowing where you are, what's important, what's happening, what you need to do next, the more confidence they'll have that you're managing things correctly, the more willing they'll be to talk about the things that you want to talk about, and the less likely it is that they'll go off on tangents and come up with other things for you to think about. And lastly, you can use that pre-thinking and this is what's going on, this is where we are, this is what we're doing next kind of structure in all of your other interactions that come up through the week. So you've done that, this is where we are this week, this is what's going on. You've always got that in your back pocket. So if you bump into somebody in the corridor and they say, what's happening with this? You say, oh, well, actually, where we are is we're here, we're doing this, and this is what's going on. So you're always ready with that viewpoint on your project. The bottom line here is really get to grips with what's important in your area, what's going on with that, what your next steps are. You'll always have a view on the things that matter if you've done that pre-thinking. Now, all of that works on stuff that's in your project, or your area that you're leading. But I think the advice that Amita was getting applied much more widely to the business. Have a viewpoint on everything that comes up and don't be afraid to put it forward. So how do you do that? I mean, that's a really big thing, right? How do you deal with anything and everything that could come up? Well, the answer is actually the same. The same sort of 2-stage thinking applies. Set aside some time each week. Might be half an hour over a cup of coffee, possibly even with your boss. But set aside some time each week to be thinking about the wider picture of your business. What's important this week? What's going on? What's going on in your sector? What are all of the similar companies to you or organisations like yours facing at the moment? How are they dealing with them? How is it affecting the business generally? And how is it affecting your part of the business? What's the impact of all of this stuff on your team? And how are you dealing with that? And then imagine that you're your boss or your boss's boss. What decisions would you be making if they were in your shoes? Sorry, what decisions would you be making if you were in their shoes? What direction would you be moving things in? There's an old line about don't dress for the job you have, dress for the job you want, right? If everybody in the layer above you wears a suit to work, well, then you start wearing a suit to work. Dress code, I'm not too bothered about, but thinking. Don't think for the job you have, think for the job you want, right? Try to put yourself in your boss's shoes, in your boss's boss's shoes. What are they thinking about right now? What decisions would you be taking if you were in their shoes? And if you're not sure, ask them. You get together in a one-to-one coffee with your boss and talk about what are we doing about this thing over here that everybody in our sector's dealing with? What are we doing about that? I've been wondering about whether we should be going in this direction. What do you think? Talk about it. But the bottom line is schedule some time to do that thinking about the wider issues beyond just your project and your area. And again, build up your own little stock of, this is what's going on, this is what I think we should be doing about it, and if it was my decision, these are the decisions I would be taking, these are the directions I would be moving in. So, the whole chunk of, how do you come to a view in the moment when you could get asked anything at any time? The answer is cheat. Pre-think it. Spend some time working out your views on the key issues of the day, whether it's in your project or more widely, before those things come up. So that if you are asked about them, you can either say, yeah, I've thought about that, this is what I think. Or you can say, I'm going to have to give that some thought. The thing I've been worrying about this week is this, and this is what I think about that. That's the first chunk of Amita's question. It's a meaty video today. Lots of deep stuff to talk about. The second part was... So part one was have a view on anything that comes up. And part two was don't be afraid to be wrong when you're putting that view forward. Whoa, that's really hard, right? Especially when you're new to leadership, you're new in this sort of level. Everybody in that weekly meeting, even your so-called peers, have all been in those posts for longer than you. So many new leaders ask me about improving confidence or being more assertive, which both equate actually to not being afraid to be wrong, or even more intrinsically, not being afraid to look foolish, right? So let me say a couple of things on this. First, you're in your role because someone thought you were the best person for that job. You got given that job. You probably applied for it, or if you didn't apply, somebody came to you and said, I really need you to take responsibility for this stuff. So you're in your role because somebody thought you were the best person for the job. And that means, A, you have every right to assert what you think about things. And B, they want to know what you think about things. That's why they gave you the job. You were given the job because people think you can think the right way about things. So even if the person who used to do your job is in the room, or if the other people in the room are doing equivalent jobs to you and they've been doing them for a long time, they still want to know what you think. They care what you think. They're interested in your point of view. Second, and more importantly than that, you have to get the differences of opinion on the table as part of the process of arriving at the best decision. So if everyone else is thinking, we should do option A here, it's obvious option A is the right thing to do, and you're sitting there going, nobody's seeing the key advantage of option B. Why is nobody seeing the key advantage of option B? The answer is because no one said it yet, so say it. So, okay, look, but option A risks this stuff and option B avoids that risk. Even if your boss ends up going for option A, even if you're the decision maker and at the end of the day you decide to go for option A, the decision will be a better one for having heard the pros and cons of option B as well. In other words, airing the differences of opinion, exploring the places where there's conflict, is crucial in getting to the best decision. And actually, by the way, note that the best decision is very often not a right decision or a wrong decision. I mean, sometimes there is, and it's obvious. We said earlier, if the building's burning down, you get out and you try and put the fire out. It's obvious what the right thing to do is. But often, there's no such thing as the right thing to do. There are just a range of options and the need to try to make the best decision you can about those options with the information you have available to you. It has to be done constructively, right? If you want to make an argument for option B and everybody else is for option A, There's no point saying, you're all idiots. Option A is clearly stupid. We should be doing option B. That's not a constructive contribution to the discussion, right? You're probably not going to change anybody's minds. And you have to commit to implementing whatever decision is reached. You have to be a part of the implementation of the decision that's reached, even if it's the opposite one to the one you would have made. And I have to say, it's easier to do that if you have had a full opportunity to air your view, put your thoughts forward, have your boss explain to you, okay, I hear what you're saying, but actually in this instance, my priority is over here, and so we're going to do this one. I agree we could do that, but my priority is over here, so we're going to do this one. If you've had that interaction, it's easier for you to commit to being part of the implementation of the different decision than the one you would have made. So, crucial 2 ways to avoid being scared that you might be wrong. The first is they want your opinion, so give it. And the second is you have to get differences of opinion out on the table in order to make the best decisions possible. So do your part, creating an environment in your team, the people that you lead, where you encourage discussion of the options, where you encourage discussion about differences of opinion. Play your part in creating that environment when you're leading from within or from below as well. Offer your opinions. Say what you think. If it turns out the decision goes another way, you've voiced your opinions, and then you're better placed to commit to implementing the decision that's reached, and you've contributed to making that the best decision possible. And that right there, contributing to making the decision the best decision possible, is demonstrating leadership. So, there we go. Practice getting to your viewpoints by prioritizing what you're thinking about. Always having a sense of this is what's most important, this is what we're doing about it. And don't be afraid to put those viewpoints across, because people want to know what you think. That's why they gave you the job. And because getting differences of opinion out is really important to make the best decisions you can make. All right. I hope that's all useful. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing to this channel for more videos with this kind of really practical advice about how to do leadership. Building your leadership skills if you're in your first leadership role. How to prioritize, do work that matters, bring your team with you, and make an impact and get noticed, because that's, get stuff done, get noticed, and build your career. That's what we're talking about, right? To help with that, as a thank you for watching and subscribing, I have a free gift for you. It's a 1-page PDF that really helps you stay on top of your priorities and working with your people effectively. You can get that at leadershipjetway.com/checklist. There's a link in the description to the video. It'll come up on the screen in a minute. Please go and grab that, and because it will help with that prioritizing, staying on top of what's important, knowing what you think about stuff. All right, that's it for today. Big love. Look after yourself. Thanks for joining us on the Leadership Jetway. Bye.